Hi, I'm Dave Fegley. I mate on the Tuna Hunter with Gary Canal in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Right now, I'm in South Carolina at a friend of mine's home, Hop Seaweed Plantation in South Carolina. I fish down here during the winter, and I fish here in the spring offshore. One of the reasons this video hasn't been timely in getting to you, I've been out to sea and just haven't had the time to pull this off. Anyway, I apologize for that. And just in the course of conversation I had with my friends Frank and Regine here, I think I answered most of the questions that you wanted me to, with the exception of, is my job dangerous and why it's dangerous? Well, of course it's dangerous. You know, first of all, you're in a boat in the ocean. The boat's constantly moving. The water in Gloucester most of the year isn't much over 50 degrees. If you just fall off the boat in water that's that temperature, you can only last a few minutes. Chances of getting drug overboard by the tuna, once you have the leader, or once you have the harpoon in the fish, is really good. The biggest mistakes I've made on the job, I would say, one day we had a fish hit, and the rod was in the front position in the gunnel. The reel that was on the rod was a Kenny Matsura reel. Japanese fellow, a machinist, apparently likes fishing, makes these pretty awesome reels. But the drag on the reel is on the left-hand side instead of the right side like most other reels. Well, I picked the rod up to move it to the rear of the boat to fight the fish, and I hit the drag on my hip, which of course released the drag, and it free spooled, and we just had a big glom of line, loops of line everywhere. The fish couldn't take line, and we couldn't reel line. Gary saw what happened, came down in the cockpit right away. I got a hold of the line, held onto the fish while Gary started pulling loops and trying to straighten the reel out, which he did, and went back up to the wheel, and I fought the fish until it calmed down. We ended up boating a legal fish. I forget exactly how big it was, but we had a sellable fish on board. And that, as far as I can tell, is probably my biggest mistake on the job. Maybe Gary could answer that one a little bit better, but that's what sticks out in my mind, was spooling that reel that day. I about had a heart attack, but we got through it. How much do we sell the fish for? The fish go for anywhere from $4 to $11 or so dollars a pound is normal, right in that price range, usually towards the upper end of that. I've heard of guys getting $28 a pound for the fish. I've of course read the news that somebody's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars for individual fish, but the fish were most likely caught on special days, like the first day of the year. It's supposed to be a good luck fish, and I would say they're the ones that are commanding the price. When it gets down to the guys on the boat, you don't see hundreds of thousands of dollars for a fish, but you do see thousands of dollars for a fish. So it's on the line. When you got one on the line, it better be coming to the boat. There really isn't room for any mistakes whatsoever. Gary is very meticulous in assuring that every possible thing that could go wrong isn't going to go wrong, and if it does, we're ready to deal with it. But I'll be in Gloucester soon. Tuna comes in the 1st of June. This is mid-June. I think I have about 2 more trips off the Carolinas here for dolphin, wahoo. I'm doing a little bit of bottom fishing now. And this bite is just really, really tough to miss to go to Gloucester until the tuna are there. But when they are, I'll be there with them. Is that all it takes? You know, I forget who said it, but I read a really good thing about character here lately, and the guy was saying that young people don't have the opportunity to develop character, and he proposed that character was developed by regret, and that things that you've done throughout your life that you regretted, and it's too late to do anything about it when you realized that you had done something wrong, or done something not necessarily wrong, but maybe not the way you should have done it, and it creates regret. But you get to a point in your life where you just pick up, there's wish I had done this or wish I had done that, and move on with it. And he proposed that this was that it was actually regret that built character.
That's
and
part.
That, and that really sort of kind of stuck with me as to I never heard it proposed like that. I always sort of kind of thought it was life experiences or surviving certain things or whatever.
It is survival and it is regret.
I never, ever thought of it like that before.
That's what's called chiseling in niches and rocks. All right, well,
Ablation through all, getting worn down. Is that once you get worn down a little bit, yeah. Yeah, I guess.
all right, you ready?
We're going.
Oh, we're going. Jeez.
I mean, did you start already?
I started it already.
Yeah, shit.
My name is.
You're making this easy, Frank. See, I thought I could come up here and sit around you guys and do this, no problem. No.
So how did you meet Gary?
How did I meet Gary? That's an interesting story. As I picked up the phone and I called him, I researched who was the best, who was catching the most fish. Gary is legendary. So I figured if I was going to go fishing Gloucester for bluefin tuna, I'd start at the top of the food chain and work down until I had a job. And I called Gary and we spoke on the phone for, briefly. He was on the boat and he asked me to call him back later, which I did, and we ended up being on the phone for maybe a couple hours. We hit it off pretty much immediately. And he said he'd help me, find a job up there, Mate, on one of the boats. And a few weeks later, he called me and asked me to come out and meet him and see the boat. And the rest is history. This will be our third year of fishing together. And with Gary, I would expect whether we fish together forever or not, that we will always be friends and spend time hunting like we have the last few years. He spends a month down in Carolina with me and hunts every year with threat of divorce. But we just get along well. That's for sure. It was certainly unexpected to get to fish with Gary, that's for sure. It's been a real privilege to do that, no doubt.
What did it feel like the first time you brought in a tuna?
The first time I brought in a tuna, my head hurt really bad. It was one of the first days I fished with Gary. I hit my head on the edge of the hardtop on the boat on the fiberglass and split my head from side to side really bad. I mean, instantly my glasses were covered with blood. I had a blood trail the whole way back into the cockpit of the boat, and we had a fish on and fought to fish. We boated a 400 and some pound tuna, big tuna, boated to fish and super glued my head back together and headed back to shore. And that's pretty much the way it usually goes. If you get hurt, you gotta sort of work through it, especially if you have a fish on. But I always wondered what Gary thought after the first couple days, and I'm bleeding all over the boat. But we got through it. That'll be a memorable day for a long time.
What do you like best about fishing?
Well, the excitement of it all. I mean, when one of those fish hits, it's like hooking onto a truck going by on the highway. They take line off the reels. It's just unbelievable how fast they are. And of course, the fight is phenomenal. If we have charter people on the boat, I'll fight the fish until it calms down a little bit and let them take over. And a lot of times the fight will last up to 2 hours or so on some of those bigger fish. And when the fish comes to the boat, ultimately we harpoon it as soon as it's close enough to do that. And I would say that that's probably my favorite thing to do, is to harpoon the fish when it gets there. That's pretty exciting. You have a hold of one end of the rope and a 400 or 500 pound fish on the other end of it. That's probably my favorite part of the job. It's the most excitement, you know, when you see the fish and you got the fish, you know, or trying to get the harpoon in it. That's just pretty exciting, for sure.
What's the biggest fish you've brought in on the Tuna Hunter?